sends and returns, okay, for effects. So if you notice earlier when I was doing this live demonstration, you might have seen me, tweaking my elbows, poking my elbows, and doing this kind of action. It wasn't to necessarily look cool. Okay, so a lot of times people think that maybe is the DJ really doing something when he's kind of doing this motion? The answer is yes. Okay, well, they should be. And in that case, I actually am running these sends here. Okay, so this send A is going to this return track, which is just a standard Ableton reverb. And then send B is delay. So send B is going to this delay. And what that allows me to do with both decks, by the way, simultaneously, I can be running this. I can be adding effects in real time. And I have this MIDI map to my keyboard, but really what it sounds like, if you wanted to see, if I hit play here, okay. Okay. Okay, so I just demonstrated how there's a reverb send, the send A is going to reverb A, and then on B we have delay. Okay, so again, if you're trying to, when is a good time to use effects? I love using effects when I hear claps coming in, or when I hear a vocal hit, or maybe the part of the song where it actually breaks down into either the bridge or the breakdown, depending which genre you're mixing in. But also it's great for transition. So sometimes I'll use reverb to wash out a signal, mixing and blending into the next track. Okay. And the cool thing is that even though this is, again, just a basic kind of setup, but you can customize this later. So if you wanted to, hey, reverb and delay are cool on their own, but if I wanted to add more returns and more sends, you can do that. And the key command is Option Command T. Okay, you can also right click in here to add a return track. And in this return track, Ableton, by the way, Ableton 11, Ableton Live 11, they actually introduced some more effects in here. They're really cool. Just different types of delays that you can try out, different modulators, different pitch and modulation. So one of my favorites is using the phaser flanger combination, and if I want, I could go ahead and just drag and drop that right onto a return track, and then automatically it's set to C send. So again, if I'm playing something like this track, for example, okay, I can send it to sending it right to this phaser flanger. And also the other cool thing is that you can customize these sends and returns. What do I mean by that? So let's say I like this phaser flanger, but let's combine it with something like vocoder. Yeah, so you can actually stack more than one effect into a return and send track. So this is actually what makes part of what makes DJing in Ableton really exciting and really fun. And this is not a knock on other DJ softwares, because if you're DJing with Serato and Rekordbox and Tractor, those are wonderful programs. But because Ableton is first and foremost a digital audio workstation, it's not just for DJing live, it's for producing as well. So this is kind of one of the things I think Ableton has up on other DJing software programs. DJing software programs strictly just for DJing, whereas this is a hybrid setup, and you can definitely do some crazy customizations here. Crazy. Why did I say crazy? I mean, you can really just get experimental here, and you can make it crazy if you want in a fun way, right? But anyways, so returns and sends is a great way to just send your signal, which is either deck A or deck B, into one of these sends, whether it's reverb, delay, and you could do more than one at a time. I could send A and B at the same time, maybe mix that with C. And what you're really looking at here, think of this as like a dry wet knob. So from the very beginning, 0%, and then if I send it all the way up, that's 100%. So 100% of the signal is going into the return track, which then in theory is going up to the master channel. outputting. Okay. The one thing I'll say though to be careful or watch out for is when you're using effects, especially like reverbs and delays, be careful how much you output, how much you send. Here's a tip for you: less is more when it comes to effects when DJing, because remember that a lot of times these effects can add actual extra amplitude, and that can cause distortion. It can actually, if you send too much of the signal going into the return track and then outputting to the master, that can actually cause some unwanted clipping and distortion, and also it can make the track itself seem louder than it really is tended to be. Like the actual effect can be louder than the song itself. So you want to watch out for that. If you're wondering what's kind of the cutoff, where do I like to cut things off? It depends, but on the safe side, on the conservative side, I would say no more than, if you're thinking this as like a clock, you could say like 3 p.m., maybe like 75% is the max I would do for most of these effects. Once in a while though, if I am going to crank it all the way to 100%, I don't hang out there too long. Meaning that if I'm going to bring an effect all the way up 100%, I will try to only do that for a short amount of time, and then dial it quickly back to the beginning. Okay, you have to experiment with these things, guys, and really I think one of the great things about DJing in Ableton is is recording your sets, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But it's actually a wonderful way to self-reflect and critique your own set. So if you're not sure how much effect is being applied, do a quick recording, and then you can listen back and see like, oh, that either sounded great or did not sound great, and I need to maybe dial these things and tweak them later. But let's keep moving on here. So also you might have noticed that I was using what sounds like a low pass filter, and again I'll demonstrate. So if I'm playing this track here, okay, this is a low pass filter, cutting all the high frequencies out. Okay, it's definitely a classic way to mix and DJ. And you can not just, it's not limited to low pass filters, high pass filters, band pass filters if you want, notch filters, if you want to get a little more creative. But really, if you notice, the main difference here between using the sends and returns for effects, this low pass filter is actually printed right on deck A, and the same goes for deck B. The reason why I chose that is because for definitely more post fader effects like reverb, because even with the reverb send, if the signal does stop, you can actually hear the tail end of the reverb. But with this type of effect, more of a pre-fader type effect, I use the auto filter. Literally, if I want to cut a signal out and make it dry, I will put the auto filter on deck A and deck B. And again, you can customize this, because one thing you learn in our Ableton classes, if this were an Ableton class in person, we talk about all the different effects and ones that will sound good, or good, giving you good examples of like this, for example, using an auto filter right on the actual track itself versus using a send type of track like a reverb or a delay. But again, you can customize this, meaning I can have more than one effect here. If I really wanted to, maybe add some gate messaging or some compression to my tracks, I could stamp that, print that right on deck A and deck B. Okay. And also something else to just side note that it does matter which effects go in which section, meaning that like the actual serial mode sorry, had a heart, my tongue got twisted there, meaning that if I decide to put reverb after the auto filter, and if it's low passing like this, what's outputting is the low pass signal, and then it's going to go to the reverb. But if I have reverb first, the reverb is going to pass through and then go into the auto filter and then output from there. So again, which decision is best for you? You have to experiment and see. Not all effects will be that obvious when you input one effect into the other, but it does technically make a difference on how you set these things up. So it's just a side note there for you, to keep that in mind. By the way, I usually don't put reverbs on my decks. I usually, again, just use those for the return tracks, the returns and send.